thank you very much for joining us this morning. So when you log into My Data Grows, you will see this home page over here. And the account owners, very important, please, that you use this Get Started link. And what this does is it takes you through adding your team into Data Grows, where to go and how to do that, as well as prepping an Excel spreadsheet for data upload. Now, our Sage Business Cloud Accounting integration is live, and that is a method of pulling your clients through to Data Grows, but we store a lot of information for clients around other things besides just invoicing them. And so a little tip from us, what we did the other day is we integrated a client with Sage and pulled their client table through, and then we copied that information into this upload sheet so that he could then complete the rest of the information. So that's also a way for you to start, is you can download your client list or you can integrate it into Data Grows. And I'll explain some of the integration steps a little bit later. But this Get Started link is really, really important to go through. There is a video that you can watch as well that specifically addresses the Excel template, completing it, and then uploading it thereafter, and then what to do after that, how to use Data Grows, etc. But I'm going to do that live with you. Once you have prepared your client's information, the navigation is also very user-friendly in Data Grows. You simply open a database and then expand and contract the departments as you need to. As the account owner, please make sure that you familiarize yourself with each of the setup tables so that your database does run the way it's supposed to. To just show you what a completed client's database would look like, this is our accounting firm, and there are in all our tables great ways to use and make the data make sense to you. Some of these are the locks next to column names. You will see that if you scroll to the right, particularly on the client's table, it is a very large table containing a lot of information. And the minute you scroll to the right, you now no longer can see the name that you were working on. However, if you scroll to the right and you've locked the lock next to that column name, you can now scroll to the right. But we took it one step further where you can choose which columns you want to freeze. And if you do so, you then have your choice of what information remains frozen as you scroll to the right. So for example, wanting to check all of your entity types and the different accountants you've assigned to them. And so that's available in any table in Data Grows, that feature. Another great feature is our filter or search feature. If you click on the filter next to any column name, you will see that it comes up and you can then enter a value to search for and click apply. And then it will apply the filter in the way that you've requested it. If you want to change the filter on a different column, you simply open it and change the filter column and then value as well. If you want to clear a filter, you simply click the little X, because you will see if I navigate to a table and come back, the filter remains active. So just click the little X there to clear the filter. And you can also filter on anything if you see a similar value that you are looking for by clicking on that value and then applying the filter. And then we also have an advanced filter where you can filter on multiple columns. And so if you wanted, for example, all your active PTYs, you would simply right click on the two columns and then it activates the advanced filter. So it's really, really useful. If you want to know more about this particular feature, when you open a filter, you will see a help icon there, and we do explain all of the features that are available. We also have save or a place for you to save your filters on various tables. And these are useful in the larger tables where you're constantly searching for something, and you want to be able to quickly filter. You can then save it for the entire team to see, and they can then do that same quick search by simply clicking on the saved filter. It will update the table for you. Okay, so just back to our clients table. If we have a look at a typical accounting client, it would be one like this. By the way, to expand a window, it's this tiny little arrow on this bar over here. You expand and contract your view in that way. And so, as I said, we have all of the details and drop downs to select from, and these exist in that same Excel spreadsheet as well to make it easier for you to upload. And then we do help you to, when you save a record, if there's any information that needs to be completed, we do make sure that you do complete it by giving you certain errors and warnings. Now, the point of Data Grows and its biggest feature and function is the automation of our tasks and deadlines as accountants and auditors. And the biggest focus then for us is to make sure that you can switch on the services that you perform for your clients within our industry. All of those that have a set frequency and due date are available for selection under the services. And by switching them on, you then tell Data Grows to automate these tasks for you. So you don't need to worry about the next deadline. We just don't schedule anything into the past. So if you do sign up in November, you won't see any of the August 2023 provisionals, for example, any of the income tax individuals that were due in October. You won't see those kinds of deadlines, but you can add backlog to any table that you need to. So these are the tasks that we automate. Where they are government regulated, we then give that due date according to the government. So you can't customize that. But there are others where you can customize the due dates for the tasks where there are more internal task related things. And then most importantly is that the person responsible for the client in the various positions can be assigned to their roles and knows that they have to complete the accounting for this client by the 15th of the month. And so that is what Data Grows does. It schedules the task and assigns it to the accountant, manager, and partner, all custom role instead of the accountant, depending on your selections. And then they know of the work to be done. So there's never any reason to miss a deadline because you forgot about a client. Everything is in the app. And I will show you the best places to find those due dates per accountant in a second. So within the client record, we've got all of their details, the team responsible for this client, the services that you perform, login details, bank details, address, etc. And then you can add additional bank details in this tab if you like. We have a register of directors, which is very important to start populating and keeping up to date. As we automate more and more letters and resolutions, these tables are going to be important that you complete them for your clients. We have the required documents table where you can set your own custom list of required documents per entity type. So this would be for PTY. You can then set this list and then create your own template. Like, for example, the engagement letter, we have a template that you can download, and then you will upload the signed engagement against this document if you so choose, as well as set an expiry date if it has one. So here's an example of an ID that was certified 3 months ago. So now it's no longer valid and we need a fresh one should the client need something from us. Okay. The proof of address, for example, is a little bit newer and will last until Jan. So it's a very useful table to keep track of these documents. Then we have our small business tax indicator, which is going to go according to each year end, that we have a existing financials or tax related task for these kinds of entities that would qualify. If you then answer yes to all these questions, it will then pull through to those tasks as a indicator whether they qualify or not for small business. And so it's useful if one person understands the structure of the client and another is drafting the financials or provisional tax or income tax, they know based on the task to apply those questions accordingly. So you can then indicate that to your team. Okay. We can also access any of the task tables, whether they are automated under services or ad hoc and once off, by opening the client record and then navigating to those tables. And you will then be able to see anything that is currently open. And so here we have our September, October period due the 15th, so due today. Where Mariska had been assigned the accountant, and then you can see Sue is responsible for the next one. So this is a great example of where I might be taking leave over December. And so we've already discussed Sue wanted to work through and go on leave, for example, in Jan. And therefore she swapped the task with me, even though normally she would do the November one. So you can reassign work depending on who's on leave, and that won't affect your automation that you set under the team member assignment per month. Okay. So as I said, you can navigate to any of the task tables. If there's an active task, it will pull through to that task table. Then another setup table to be aware of is the share register. This is very important if you're going to use us as your supporting documents for the Subsea Beneficial Ownership Declaration. We do create this as a report for you to then simply upload to Subsea, but it also is a way to generate share certificates. The minute you save the record, the share certificate is created and it's already formatted, and you simply save it to PDF and have it signed, and then you can come back and store it against the shareholder for their duration of holding their shares. Should they cancel or sell their shares, you would then see on their certificate that it was cancelled and at this date. So it's useful as well if you are providing that information about changes within a certain number of days as they are now requiring, or in the last 12 months, you have the information in Data Grows. Okay. All right, so that is our client record. Just save it there. And then other navigations on any page or table in Data Grows, you can set the number of rows per page. And if you prefer the smaller view, which does load quicker, you'll then just navigate between your pages over here. You'll see how many records are in a table. And the filter does actually filter correctly. So if you run any bulk actions, it doesn't go behind our filters to sort of mess up anything that you filtered on. So that does work correctly. And then what I did mention earlier was that the team responsible for all of these deadlines obviously need to know about them. And we've got a few ways where you can see if you've got work coming up and then what to do with that work. So that would be your typical day in Data Grows. And to start with is our all tasks due dashboard, where I did show you our saved filters. And so this dashboard, if we just clear our filter here, is all of our accountants, all of the due dates in the firm. You can have multiple firms in Data Grows. You'll see we're running 2 branches essentially here. And so this is the entire team members' responsibilities. And then the due dates are basically what run our lives, right? We're all held to those, and there's no or very little grace for missing them. And so what we've done is we've color coded anything that is in the past will be colored pink. Anything coming up in the next 7 days is yellow. And then anything after that is white. And so your firm's immediate focus is this yellow and pink section. And really looking at this from a firm perspective, we don't want to see this amount of red on any given day, because it means that a lot of tasks are either not being completed in the app, or that work was actually missed and we're in a lot of trouble. And so here you can see this table is quite large. We're already on 233 records. And so it really does matter that you can filter on various columns. And for example, where I am the partner or manager of a task, that is where my focus might be. And then I might have various team members that I'm responsible for. And so if I wanted to filter where I am marked as the partner on a task, then I can see the various team members that might have missed deadlines. And what this table is showing us is the various tasks that fall under that. So here, for example, is an annual return. It's basically 30 days late now, so we're going to have to pay a penalty. And in terms of penalties and who's to blame and who's at fault and et cetera, we understand that it's not always you guys as the accountants who create the penalty. And so we give you a lot of space to indicate whether you were waiting for the client, for example. This could have been loaded into Data Grows, but their 2023 financials are yet to be signed. Now, your hands are tied until your client accepts responsibility for those figures. And so if I open this record as Lesedi's partner on this task, I'm expecting to see notes here why this deadline was missed. So it was due on the 11th of October. That was the anniversary. And then SIPC gives you that 30-day grace from that date. And so the fact that it's now the 15th of November means that there'll be a penalty applicable. And so what we need to do is make sure that the notes indicate why the deadline was missed, so that I'm not biting Lesedi's head off before getting all my facts in order. So she would use this space to say client was sent financials in August. They are disputing figures and refuse to sign. David has followed up. So this is just an example of the kind of notes I expect from my team members. If they have followed up with somebody, explained the consequence of not complying, etc., then Lesedi doesn't have to have a panic attack when I walk to her office or give her a call and say, listen, why wasn't this annual return done? She can refer to her notes, but I can also refer to her notes. And so it's really, really useful. We stress ourselves out a lot by trying to remember things, trying to go and look up emails, etc. And so keep it all in one space so that you can quickly answer a question that somebody might ask you. The client might even have received an email from SIPC as well, reminding them of the annual return and now possibly that it wasn't submitted. They do those automated things. And so if this client is now barking in your ear, you can say, but you are the reason, and it was explained to you, etc., etc. So it just helps that all of that stuff flows correctly, and that also that your client knows and feels that you're on top of every single service you are supposed to be offering them, even where they are to blame. We are still accountable. You guys know that it's like a parent and a child kind of relationship. So do what you can to make sure that the app does all of that hard work for you. Okay. So if we come back to our all tasks due now, this looks really intimidating. And like I say, like my team's not working at all. Um, it's just for demo purposes. Hopefully yours won't look like this. But if, for example, you do access a task like the accounting for the end of October, that one obviously doesn't have any direct consequences except for the fact that if they were a odd VAT vendor, that you wouldn't have had completed accounting work in order to submit their VAT return. So that does have a consequence. And if you get nearer to their year ends, etc., then the more that this heaps up, the less we can do to finalize any of the other tasks. So it doesn't have a direct regulator, but obviously has a knock-on effect. And so if this was an example where Lesedi used our workflow to keep track of her progress, and everything was done, the next step to do to reduce that rate that we're seeing and all the numbers that add up to all the tasks that are due or overdue is in every task is a status column. And to complete a task that is actually done, so the work obviously has to be done, you simply change the status to completed, and it moves then from the active table to the archive, the corresponding archive table. And you will see then that you have a full history of all the work that's been done since you've started with Data Grows. And so when you are looking at a particular client and you want to see, for example, if you've missed an invoice for financials, you can see in the archives, but it was done. The notes say the client signed, etc. So, okay, I can go and raise that invoice. If someone forgot to time for a particular period, you can actually see that the work was done, therefore charge your invoice, etc. So please don't delete tasks unless you feel that it was created incorrectly. We archive tasks to complete them, and we do that by changing their statuses to completed. Now, let's say in her enthusiasm, she marked this as completed, but actually my notes mentioned when I reviewed her management accounts that the payroll does not reconcile. Please see salary control. And so my note said to her, please go and check that. If she needs to carry on working on a task that she's already archived, you simply change the status to anything other than completed, and it will appear back in the current task table. She can then come back, respond to my note, and then what happens in this particular table is the management reports have what I like to call the ping pong of assignment. And so once she's balanced it, so we use our little initials when we update notes, etc. So I might have used mine. I'll show you another place to do this as well, but she can then mark the management reports again as please review, and it will actually move this task from her name in the all tasks due to my name as the accountant. So it's not to say that now I get allocated over here. I'm still the partner, but my all tasks due is now showing there's something for me to do to actually perform the work rather than oversee it. And so then I will get that on my all tasks due, come to the record, and then say reviewed, and then it pongs back to Lesedi, and she can then come and archive it if I'm now happy with what she achieved. So then we would send the client the management reports, and this task would be done. Okay. Another way to communicate with each other in this way is through the speech bubbles on each of these tasks. This is almost like sending an email. The only difference is that it's very task and client specific as well as accountant specific. So over here, if I want to initiate a chat with Lesedi, she must be a licensed accountant. In this case, she doesn't appear to be, so that will hinder your communication if you use the speech bubbles. She wouldn't be able to log in either, so she's a very bad example in my demo environment. But you simply type the app button, and all of your licensed accountants do pop up here to then add them in a chat. And then you can then send them a message, and each user has a My Chats window where you can see unread messages, read messages. The unread 0 would be either where you initiated the conversation or somebody else did. And if you click on that, provided it's still an active task, you will see the speech bubble. Let me just pick a better one. That one's also archived. Should be that one. So here we have this task that there might be an issue with. If we want to see the conversation that's been initiated here, you can then see the history on the task. If you do find it in your archive, you will also see the chat. We don't erase it, but this only refers to active tasks. Okay, so the chats will only link to active tasks, but it's a great way to have a very specific conversation with a very specific person. If you then want to bring anybody else into the conversation, you would then simply add them in your next message, and then they can see the history of the chat, but now it's directed towards them. So it's great to then kind of move on with your lives once it's sorted and archived and everything like that. So it's a great internal communication tool from there. Okay. So another typical day scenario is David, for example. Again, now we've got this August one because I unarchived it, so you can see that the dashboard is live. But if we just go a little bit closer to our current month over here, if Sue's done with her accounting, she could archive it. But if she's only just begun, maybe the client was late in sending the weekly bank statement. So this is a weekly task, which is why it's such a strange period. It's not something that normally ends on the 3rd of November, but this is a weekly accounting client. So a few things that we offer is our automated timekeeper. If you push play when you open a record, it immediately starts timing for you. You would now access your accounting program and do the bookkeeping. When you are done, you come back to Data Grows and push stop. If you navigate away, the timer is still running, and if you hover over the timer, it will show you which clients and task you are busy timing on. You can log out, you can lose internet, you can lose power to your machine, or whatever happens in our daily lives in this country. The timer will keep going, so you don't have to ever stress that you will lose time for anything outside of your control. We keep it running. And our servers are in Europe, which means they have power all the time. And then when she is done, she will simply push stop, and then the timer stops. And so what that does is it automatically creates a time log record. But very important to note is it creates a record for the user that pushed play. So even though Sue was the accountant, maybe I timed while I was reviewing her management reports. And so it picks up the person who's logged in currently and pushes play on the task. So you don't need to make sure that you're assigned as the accountant in order to assist somebody or in order to make sure that your time is being logged while you are, for example, training a new person or, like I say, reviewing from a management point of view. Whoever pushes play will create the time log, and it happens automatically. Okay. So thereafter, as I did explain, we do make our notes. We do make sure that the tasks are worked on and completed where applicable. You can make use of these tick boxes, the workflows, if you like. I find them very useful. If I get interrupted, I don't have to rethink everything I've already achieved because I simply tick the tick boxes, click save, and Data Grows has now sort of kept my place in that progress of that client. Okay. And then in terms of the time that we log, if I forgot to make a note, you will see that if I show you that magic one where I made the notes to Lesedi, when you time, the notes that you make in the task pulls through automatically to your time log. So they're very useful, as I've said, not only to see why deadlines are missed, but also for billing purposes. So any notes that are made every time you push play, the updated notes will pull through to the time log. So you can wipe the notes if they're no longer applicable, put new notes there and push play, etc. But they do pull through to the time log over there. And you can, if you forgot to make a note, simply come and add it to your time log if it's relevant for billing purposes. So let's say, for example, this one took me an entire day. We're usually there about a 2-hour client. You can say here that the bank feed broke. So something we experience all the time with our cloud systems is these bank feeds that tend to break. Then you might import a CSV manually, for example, for the sake of completing the work on time. And then when it's reactivated, so maybe somebody else reactivates it, or the system itself comes back online, and then you end up with duplicates with when they bring in the last uploaded transaction. So some of them are good, some of them are a complete nightmare. Sometimes we end up with duplicates even without importing transactions manually. So the notes help the billing to be fair. Now, in this case, in my firm, I wouldn't necessarily charge the client for the bank feed breaking. They're paying for a service which we expect to be online all the time. And so it might be in my best interest to not charge for the extra time and stick to their average. Or if it's because they messed up, even though they're not supposed to be fiddling with the bank feed, for example, and they cause the duplicates and we explain to them that it's now going to take this extra time, then we bill them the extra time, but everyone's happy. So it's useful, it saves time, it saves queries when you're trying to bill your clients because the notes are there. You can also, if you forget to push stop, like I do every single afternoon, and you can change your end time, you would then either type it in manually or use our calendar and clock if you timed longer than you should have. And if you forgot to push play on any task and you can recall when you started, you then simply click add record in the time log, select the client, select the task, assign yourself as the accountant, add a note if you need to, and then your start and end time. So you can capture time manually. Please don't do it if you can use the play button instead. We really spend a lot of our lives remembering and stressing and getting interrupted. So get in the habit of using the start stop. It really saves time and it's accurate and it works then with the notes that are in the task, etc. Okay, so that's important. And then another thing that a manager would be concerned with would be the authorizing of time. So from a billing perspective, we know that there are certain things that you might hold back when you do your billing. Let's say, for example, a set of financials you only expect to finish in December. And so you don't want to invoice your clients a little bit each month. Maybe it's quite a big company or it's a group consolidation, and you want to invoice the group with one big invoice once everyone is round robin and balancing and everything. You can then hold back certain tasks that need to be held back for billing purposes, and that sort of leaves them in this time authorized table. Anything else that you are ready to invoice, you move to the time invoice pending table by, in the time authorized, applying filters, checking the checkboxes, as I said, and then you would hold back or uncheck anything that you are not ready yet to bill. And then you would move it to mark invoice pending. And you will see then what that does is, even in the time log, it means that your staff can no longer edit those records. So now if they realize after the fact or when you are reviewing your billing reports that they should have made a note, then it's up to the person with access to these tables to actually come and add the notes or change the duration. So it just helps that you sort of don't have time discrepancies, but you don't have to micromanage your team. Let them make their notes. Let them, they would anyways, in any of our other competing systems, have access to fumble through their timekeeping. So don't micromanage this table in particular. Use the authorized process to lock in the time that you now want to be ready for billing. And then that creates it in this table and moves it away from their day-to-day access and view. Okay. Then if they do, for example, add a record after the fact now, let's say, for example, Lizelle did the financials, she completed them, and she still completed them within November, but I've already done my November billing. What that means is when I do my December run, I don't lose that time now just because it's dated November. If she happens to time tomorrow, for example, it's then almost like closing a VAT period in your accounting system. An invoice loaded after the fact pulls through to the current VAT period, so our time log works the same. Anything after you've run your time authorized function, you will then bill for in the next cycle if that's how you want to use it. So it just helps you to keep track of that. Okay, so that is the timekeeping, the sort of day-to-day navigation from the dashboard, the all tasks due, and then into the various tasks that need to be done. Now, this guy, if you do find it to be quite large and overwhelming, a lot of records where clicking to the various tables you don't find to be useful. I only recommend using this as a live clicker when you're actually in the space to do the accounting work. For example, access it via this button, and it just makes it easier because it's already filtered. So when we're doing our VATs, for example, then go to the VAT column, filter on the VATs that are due in 2 weeks' time, and do the VAT returns because they're already filtered on your name. But if you want to plan the work that's assigned to you, plan your time, and see it as an overview, we have a report under the reports table called your to-do list for the next 30 days. And so this guy gives you a snapshot of only 30 days. Any deadline that's been missed will be included. So even if it's older than 30 days, it will be on here. But we don't go 30 days past today. So past the 15th of December, any tasks assigned to David, you can see in the dashboard, but really this is within his control, this view over here. And so, as I said, it really looks like he doesn't work. And so maybe he needs a little help inside the app itself in terms of completing his tasks, or he needs some help in terms of getting the work done. Maybe he's very overwhelmed and overloaded. This kind of information is going to be useful. So for each team member, you can see their own individual dashboards. But if you go to the pages thereafter, you will see, if you expand, an actual detailed list of all the tasks, the clients, as well as the particular task inside those tables. So, and then the notes as well. So here you can see he's still got to do this income tax individuals, but he's still waiting. He was still waiting for her logbook until the 3rd of November. So if it's still not completed today, then I want to know from him why 12 days later he's still not done this income tax return, because according to me, he got it on the 3rd of November. So it's really useful to kind of see what's coming up. The notes are helpful. All of his pink color coding pulls through, and he can see what's coming up next week. It doesn't seem too heavy. Payroll's not such a big deal. And so maybe David can spend a lot of time just cleaning up this table over here. So if you like your weekly team meetings and check-ins and so on, this report is really, really useful. And every Monday morning at 7 o'clock, we send this report out as an Excel document to each and every team member so that they can actually see the tasks assigned to them. Any deadlines that they've missed, etc., will then be visible to them. Okay. So it's really, really helpful to plan your lives and see who needs help where. Okay. It's also live if you view it in the app and make any changes. So if we had to, for example, take something away from David, like this logbook, let's say he needs somebody to help him, and you actually want to change the accountant assigned, you would find Kim in the income tax individuals table, change the accountant, and then when you refresh this particular report, it will automatically reassign it. So we continually speak with our reports once they are open in the browser. You don't have to come back here to run it a second time. Okay. And some of them do have a limit on how long the link remains live. Then you would need to reopen it from here. But I'm quite comfortable already using our online versions, and you will get used to it as well as you navigate. Okay, then just to show you some other features, and then we'll open it up for questions as well, is we've got various services, as I said, where a deadline is prescribed or a frequency can be set. We offer that in the clients table. But then we have several tables where if you need to do a service for a client, that is ad hoc. So once off every now and then when they request it or you know it needs to happen, you can access these tables, add the tasks, time on them, make your notes, archive them, see the history, etc. So our firm and ad hoc task table, for example, you will then see your history of the work done as you go there. Now, this table is a set drop down of task names. And you can search for something that you might be looking for, like doing filing of slips, for example. You would then apply it to the client, assign yourself, etc., and then you can time on it, make your notes. If this list does not have a task name that you want and need to keep track of for a client, then please use the once off custom tasks table, where here the task name can be anything you like. You then still assign it to a client if applicable. You can still time on it, assign the team, but then you've got to do the billing selection here. The firm and ad hoc tasks links to the rate group and rate setup that you can do with us. But the once off custom tasks, because you can name it whatever you like, you then either choose that you must connect it to an existing rate. So maybe it's a sub task of an existing task in Data Grows, or a fixed amount that you then say was 3,000 Rand that you agreed with your client, or a no charge amount, a no charge task, but you still want to keep track of it. Okay, so that is important if you're going to use this task table over here. Then lastly is the specialized tasks. Now, this is the one that's getting most of my team into trouble. You'll see in the all tasks due, it's the one with the most tasks that is not completed. So I should also just clear this so that it's not so busy. And the quickest way to auto complete a task is to check the checkboxes next to the tasks you want to archive, and then you just run the action mark complete. So this is available in any task table in Datagrows, but obviously use it at your own risk. Only where you know the work is complete and you don't want to have to go and open each of them and change their statuses individually. You can then check their checkboxes and mark them as complete. Okay, so now my archive over here is up to date. And the examples, just to show you, is this is a daily task of buying milk. Apparently, we drink a lot of coffee in this firm. And then the others that are here, let me just go to the end, would be an example. If you're using Xero, for example, would be to upload slips to Dext. Maybe a clerk is responsible for it so that the accountant can just go ahead and do it. Or your client is responsible and you just want a daily reminder to actually go and remind the client. You can custom create these tasks. Under setup is the specialized scheduler. So this is all of the tasks that we have created a schedule for that then populates to the specialized tasks table. So this is any automation that you need that we haven't created our own task table for, but it's a service that you need for a particular client at a set frequency, at a set due date, and you want to be able to be reminded of it at that due date. So you would then add the record, name it whatever you like. You can put a long description here. You then do link it to a specific department so that you can link it for rates purposes, the accountant manager and partner, and then the frequency is how you set up your scheduling. So you would then say first Friday, for example, every workday, last day of the month, last Friday, or specific day of the month, specific day of the week. This is where you're going to say the 15th of every quarter, for example, I want to have a reminder for this task. So you've got full control over the number of months. So if you wanted the 15th of every month, you would say every 1 month. And then the start date would be today as an example, but I want it in my scheduler 5 days before the due date. So it already populates in the logic that you've specified 5 days before the due date. And let's say, for example, you want to call the task something like reconcile bank with Xero. So we do have a bank recon tick box in our accounting workflow, but maybe you feel like a junior staff member really needs to be reminded to check that the bank actually does balance. And so you can come and set it up. Obviously, it's an accounting related task, and poor old Lesedi is responsible for checking that. Okay, I can assign myself as the partner as well, and then save and edit that task. And now it's going to run at a set frequency. So you can absolutely customize the services in your own schedule, etc., if it exists outside of our already set up frequency. So be wary of doing things here that have a penalty, because obviously you're now at the risk of selecting the wrong setup and schedule and then missing a deadline that we already handle in a table that has the correct due date for each of your clients. So just bear that in mind. Use them more for internal tasks or over and above value add that you do for your clients. Okay. Then lastly is the CIPSI department. Now, we do schedule the annual returns. As I showed you before, we had one with a deadline that had been missed. We schedule the CIPSI beneficial ownership according to the same anniversary date, so the registration date. We did do the 1 October deadline for everybody, but now that that's passed, it's going to go according to their registration date. And here's where those supporting documents are generated, where I said, if you complete the shareholders, the share register is populated. you do need to, there's an entire video that helps you just on this particular setup. It's really, really useful. It'll take you once off to set up the client, and then we store the information. And every year you just download your new supporting documents that you need to do. Okay. I'll show you where to get that particular explanation video in a second. And then we have our maintenance tables. So for SIPC company maintenance tasks, we have this task table where, again, it doesn't have a set frequency of when these things need to happen. It's when the client initiates it on their side, or things happen and we've then got to respond via a SIPC transaction. So an example would be new directors coming on, old directors leaving, for example. So this task was selected in the drop down. And the reason why that is a set drop down is we list the supporting documents required to successfully submit this to SIPC. You can then check the checkboxes when you've requested the documents and mark it as document requested. Okay, and then mark it as received on the date that you received it. And then this helps you keep track of those supporting documents so that you don't email SIPC forgetting your ID copy, for example, and then they kill the transaction and you have to start again. Okay. Then another thing to note is that the uploaded date. You guys will know that when you lodge these transactions, they give you a certain number of calendar days in which you need to respond. And if you don't respond with an email back to them by that date, they kill the tracking number and you've got to start from scratch again on SIPC. So if you save the date here, when you click lodge on SIPC and you then got the CRR 39 as an example to send to your client to save, let's just call it today though, then we calculate the due date of that task. So it's okay. We calculate that due date there, and then overnight our day counter refreshes. So maybe this one I had to start from scratch because we were already long past the deadline. Tomorrow it will start from 1 again and count up for you. And you can keep an eye on it that it doesn't hit that 10-day mark. And then you've got to start from scratch again. Okay, so make sure you have all your documents, obviously, before you click lodge, but then don't forget to reply to their email and have to redo it. Okay, so it's a really, really great table to keep track of this stuff. You can time on these tasks, make your notes again, etc., archive them once they're done, and then have your history of all your company maintenance transactions that you've been doing for all your clients. So it's really great. Similarly, for SARS, we have SARS tasks. Now, where a verification can be triggered in a table in Data Grows, for example, the corporate tax returns, if IT14 is requested on e-filing, you can tick the tick box inside this task. And when you do that, it will automatically create a SARS task for you. So the VAT returns, corporate tax, income tax, provisional tax, EMP 501s, anything where SARS might ask of you supporting documents from within our own tables, you can trigger a SARS task and then it pulls through the task name, the client, the accountant, as well as the period that you were working on. So you don't have to come and complete that information in this table. We then immediately give you an internal due date of 7 days from when the task was created. So that's when you need to then upload your supporting documents. And each of these, if you open the subtask, lists the supporting documents required to successfully submit these to SARS. And then in this case, the uploaded date gives you the due date according to the turnaround time by when SARS must respond and also by when you can escalate or lodge a complaint. So what happens is, if you think of a VAT return verification, we gave them their supporting documents 3 working days ago. If I phone today, they're going to say to you, why are you phoning today? It's been 3 working days. Please call back on the 11th of December. Now I've wasted 2 hours of my life either on hold or waiting for a callback that never comes. Whereas if I had just looked at my SARS task table, I know by then I should try and get through if I've not gotten a response yet on this verification. And this year in particular, they have been incredibly slow at responding. So this is an example over here. For this client, we're now over the due date, so I can phone and escalate if I'm still waiting for SARS to respond. But this one is still young, and there's no point in even mentioning that period to them until the 21 working days have passed. So it's really useful to keep track again of the supporting documents that you need to submit. So this is a big one and a pain in all of our bums to get done. We give you templates that you can download where applicable, links to the SARS websites for upload where applicable, and then again, the turnaround time according to each task does calculate. And so this one, for example, if I've still not heard anything, there's big trouble here. We're going to struggle with this particular update. Okay. So it helps you to stay on the ball, not let them just lie there waiting for SARS to reply. You can now hold them accountable and make a problem of yourself within the correct time periods until they actually respond to you. Okay. And then I mentioned the beneficial ownership video. All of our help videos and information about upgrades and everything you'll find by clicking on the resources button. There is the video and guide on the beneficial ownership setup. When we roll out our November upgrades, you'll see that here's a video about how to action your Sage integration if you use Sage for your phone billing. You can watch a previously recorded demo if you feel like you want to look for other features that I might have mentioned before. And then we have the full manual. Now, a lot of our tables have little information icons next to their headings. We are endeavoring to make sure that every table has one. And if you click on that, it goes inside the manual and then to that particular table. So it's a filtered version of that, and it explains the SARS tasks as I have just done now. Where applicable, we've put a YouTube video as well to watch. But the manual gives you everything all in one place. So if you want to use this to familiarize yourself with Data Grows, as you can see, we handle a lot of things, and it is quite useful to just make sure that you understand everything that we do and offer you. Okay, so that was the resources button. Then we have the help button, where you can send a direct email to our support team by completing your email, your message, and your name. And then you click send and it comes straight to us. All our contact information is available here. And this number can be called as well as WhatsApped for assistance as well. And then lastly, please ensure that all your team members, once you've invited them to Data Grows, the following day, they will see this My Training database. Now, this is very similar to how I've done the demo, but they can do it at their own pace. And so if they click on My Modules, their access that you give them when you invite them, so after you've gone through the Get Started link, these questions will reduce depending on each person's access. So a super user will see all of the questions versus a payroll user will only see anything related to their payroll tasks, okay? And so you start with question 1, you watch the video, you answer the questions, and by doing so, it just helps reinforce that you've understood the video and the feature. And then if you score incorrectly, we do give you the correct answer. So it's not a test to particularly prevent you from using Data Grows at all, but it's very useful if you feel like you have questions about the CIPSE and SARS task table, for example, it's not working the way you expect it to, please come back to the training video and check the answers to the questions, or then get in touch with support. Okay, but this is a great way if you like to sort of do your admin late at night. Then come do your training videos and make sure that you know exactly what Data Grows can do. Then under my demos, again, according to each person's access, they will be able to book a link. And please do the training before you book team training with us. We've gone through a lot of effort to make sure that this helps people understand the app. So please make sure that you do that. And then you can book things like helping to set up your retainers and rates, etc. So this takes you to a Calendly where you would, for example, book for Friday's webinar if you wanted to attend that one as well. You're welcome to attend any number of webinars like this morning's. And I recommend to do it every month or every second month or so, just because we do upgrade at a very fast rate. And so you will then be kept up to date with any of our latest features in these webinars. Okay, if there are any questions, please feel free to at this stage to unmute and ask, or you're welcome to continue sending them in the chat. Otherwise, that is the end of our webinar. Thank you very much for joining. Feel free to let us know if you have any other questions or suggestions for the app as well.